Welcome, hockey fans, to the Hockey Toolkit. This is Andrew Trimble, and I'm running solo tonight as Trevor is actually coaching a practice right now in the greater Chicago area. I have with me a lifelong hockey entrepreneur, Toby O'Brien. Toby has spent time at all levels of hockey. He's one of the original founding members of the Eastern Junior Hockey League. He's been a general manager in the East Coast Hockey League, and he's been a professional scout with the New York Islanders and the Buffalo Sabres. And he's going to give us his thoughts and feedback on what he's seen in today's hockey environment and his backstory on hockey. So welcome to the podcast, Toby.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Listened to it a few times, and you guys do a great job, and you talk about good things that more people should think about in the game.
We try, like sometimes we miss the mark, but sometimes you try to get some perspective from different people like yourself who, have been in the game their whole life.
Sure.
My first real question is we're dealing right now with so much stuff, turmoil in junior hockey, but you were here on the East Coast at the beginning of it all. Tell me a little bit about that process. Well, what did that look like when you were getting together with some other owners and you were considering forming the Eastern Junior Hockey League? Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, I guess I should say I'm sorry, because if we hadn't started it, none of this stuff out there would be going on right now, from youth hockey to junior hockey to hockey academies. So I apologize to everyone back in 1992 for having an idea. No, you know what? I had the good fortune to play and go to college, and I was actually living up your way in New Hampshire at the time, and I was a police officer in Dover, New Hampshire, and during that time period, I got asked to coach a midget team because I got into detectives kind of early in my career and had somewhat of a normal schedule. While I was doing that, I got asked to coach the Catholic high school down that way, St. Thomas Aquinas. Started coaching there, and in the first year we went to the state semifinals, played at the old Snively Arena at UNH, and then the second year we went to the state finals, and we lost 3-2 in overtime to Concord High School, and we were beat by a freshman young lady by the name of Tara Mounsey, who rifled one from the point that beat our goaltender, who went on to play at West Point. So you could tell how good she was back in the day. I guess the thing that got me motivated to do something was that during that whole time period, in those two trips to the Frozen Four of New Hampshire high school hockey, there were a grand total of no college coaches in the building at Snively. And we had some good players, as did Concord. Concord had a kid by the name of Chris Carpenter who could have probably played Division I hockey, and instead he went on to play professional baseball. Not at Concord, at Trinity, and part of the Frozen Four grouping there. And again, nobody was there. So a group of people got together, headed up by Danny Esdale, who at the time was the head of Mass Hockey, had been there for a long, long time. Gene Binder, God rest him, Jim Pryor, longtime voice of BU, and just a really good hockey person. And they got a bunch of people together, and there was one independent team playing back then, the Springfield Olympics, run by Gary Deneen. Gene Riley was the coach, his assistant coach, excuse me. And they got us a group of people together, and there were 5 of us, along with them, Scott Harlow, myself, Gary, Timmy Siglowski down in Rhode Island, down here, and Leo Gould, who was in Tingsboro. And bottom line is they were trying to come up with an idea that could allow kids the opportunity to stay home, not have to go. The USHL was nothing like what it is today. The North American League existed, but a couple kids went out there. Some kids went to Canada, but most of the kids, the only option was prep school. And back then, if you can believe it, prep schools were about 35,000. So we were trying to do something that allowed the kids who wanted more to either stay locally, continue to play for the high schools, and then do something between high school and college without having to pay $35,000 to go to prep school, or the way some kids had to do it, they left and went out west, many to Canada. So we figured it out, and we all figured if we threw in $5,000, it would give the league a $25,000 startup pot, and we all agreed to do it. And before you knew it, the Eastern Junior Hockey League was born, and there were 5 teams. There were the Springfield Olympics, the NECDL Classic, Scott Harlow, the Rhode Island Sharks, Timmy Seglaski, the Tingsboro Huskies, Leo Gould, and back then the Granite State Stars, which was our club that we played in Dover, New Hampshire. And we got it going with a little help from somebody who got programs up in your area going, a guy by the name of Merrill Fay, who gave a nice little donation to try and help us get going. And his son, Will, actually was one of our first captains. So before you knew it, a year later, we had the Eastern Junior Hockey League, and
That's
it
amazing.
became a good little league. It was fun back then.
Oh, for sure. Like and even going back, I started coaching junior in New Jersey 15 years ago. And even then, 15 years ago, the landscape was just so different. And kids, they weren't talking about, oh, I want to go play in the NA. It was like, I want to play in the EJ. That was
Yeah,
still in 2008, 9. The EJ was still the preemptive league, and you didn't have to go halfway across the country to get an opportunity to play Division I hockey, and allowed kids to be close to home. And even you know very well the gentleman I coach with here in New Hampshire, Tim Kuhns. I mean, he was an NHL draft pick out of Long Island, and he played in the EJ. Had never had any really ambition to play in the USHL because he was like, I'm getting great coaching, I'm in a great
yeah,
environment, I'm getting seen by every single one of the schools that would be amazing opportunities to play at.
yeah. No, that's exactly what we did. And even in our early days of starting up, we had a few Division I kids, and then in my case, I brought a guy on by the name of Sean Tremblay, who had graduated college. He had to quit playing hockey at University of Southern Maine early because he had some blood clot issues. And the gentleman that I was working with, a guy by the name of Frank McCutcheon, who kind of was motivated to get involved. He was from Somersworth, New Hampshire. His son was playing in Manitoba, and he and Will Fay had grown up around the same age, and that's how we all connected. So I brought Sean on board, and we did it together for 4 years. And after the first 3 years in New Hampshire, we got a deal in Biddeford, Maine, to move our team over there. They kind of got it. They were a French Canadian little city, and they built us a beautiful setup over there, and locker rooms, classrooms, offices. We were averaging about 500 a night. We had shoot to score. Like, it was a lot of fun. And out of the blue, I got hired in pro hockey. I got hired by Johnstown in the ECHL, the Chiefs, the home of Slapshot. I lived the movie for 10 years. I played there, and then I worked there for 10 years, coach, GM, and then went on to the National Hockey League, the New York Islanders, the Buffalo Sabres, and I retired as the scouting director in Florida. But I kind of watched from afar. So in those first 4 years, we were already getting Division I commitments out of it. But we did a real cool thing that we had a large, I can't remember what it was. It was 75 to 85% of your team had to live within a geographic area. So like, we were northern New England. You couldn't just bring kids in from everywhere. We did it to benefit the kids of our area. And then you could fill in with so many kids from abroad. There was no trading. There was a cap on what tuition could be. You couldn't do movement between teams. And don't quote me on this, Andrew, but I think we had a 23-man roster limit. Might have been 24. So we were trying to make a commitment to a group of kids, bring them from point A to point B. And then, I went on a 23-year journey to pro hockey, and I still kept in touch with it because it was the core of what I was, what I am. And I truly believe in it and believe in that concept. And I saw the Eastern Junior League continue to grow,
Yeah.
and it grew. Like, it really grew. And obviously the Atlantic Junior Hockey League kind of started after that, but kind of grew, side by each until I believe it was 2012 when things kind of got a little bit crazy out east. And I think people saw the ability to not only make some money and do a good job and promote kids and do all those things. I think people should make money. Like, this is the United States. If you work hard and you provide a good service, you should make money. But I think at that point, people saw the ability to say, wow, you can make some real money here, and people are willing to do different things. And the league split, the leagues merged. Some teams went one way, some teams went the other way. And I think we've all been, everybody in the space has been kind of swimming upstream ever since then, trying to figure out, what's up,
sure.
where are things going.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, before we get too much into the current state of modern hockey or even into the pro hockey stuff, tell me about those early days of the EJ. I love how you put in those metrics there. Like you couldn't, have a roster that, had too many kids that were outside of your area. You had a roster limit size. What do you think really led to the takeoff of the league? What obviously there were some good players to play here and there wasn't a ton of other options to play elsewhere, but that doesn't mean the league didn't guarantee that the league would be successful. What was the turning point in that league from being a startup league to being what it became?
Well, you know what? It was funny because a lot of high school coaches found it threatening and thought we were going to come in. There was a coach in Manchester, New Hampshire, that bought us. The police met me at the door one time, and they would not let me into the rink. Right?
You remember in your old police gear to say, "I'm one of your own."
That's what I said. I'm like, come on, but
you got the wrong guy.
They found it threatening, and truthfully, we wanted the kids to stay through high school and then make the jump to us after that. But I think the prep schools had hit the high schools pretty hard, and kids had left. So I just think it was another place of threatening. So I guess what we tried to do, and it was Dan and Jimmy Pryor. They had a consultant that came in and tried to identify what our marketplace was and what we were trying to do and what we were trying to compete against in the things we had to. And basically, they weren't worried about the USHL or the North American, who back then were on equal playing levels, but they weren't what they are today. The Canadian leagues were still out there, but some kids went, but not a lot. Most of the kids went to prep school. So what we did is we tried to set rules as if you were a parent sending your child to Holderness School, New Hampton, Cushing, right, Salisbury, whatever that might be. And what are they getting guaranteed there? Well, they were getting guaranteed room, board, academics, all their sports. If they made varsity, they were probably going to be on a team of 23 guys, right? And they knew when they started there, if their son or daughter didn't do anything wrong, they were going to be there from September until June. So that's the model that we took. We tried to recreate a prep school athletic model where you knew if your child was coming to our programs in the Eastern Junior League, that they were going to be safe, they were going to be set, they were going to be cared for, they were going to be nurtured, developed, and they knew they were going to be there from September until March for this dollar, right? And we tried to provide all those things. And I got to give a few of the prep schools credit. They played us. Like, I remember the first time that Cushing said, yep, come on down. And we went down and played Cushing. And we went up to New Hampton and played New Hampton. I'll never forget the first time I played there. 10 seconds into the game, we had a 2-on-1, and one of our kids got a pass, and he one-timed it. Kid from Lewiston, Maine. I think his name was Paul Champagne. It was so cold. 10 seconds into the game, we hit the post, and the puck broke in two. Right? But I give those prep schools credit because they were willing to play us.
Yeah.
And that gave us a little bit of credibility and put us on par. If you want to do this, go to New Hampton School. But if you want to stay home and do high school and have that experience and then play junior for, I think back then we were charging $2,700, $3,000, $3,500, somewhere in there. We had a cap. I think the cap was like $4,000 that a team could charge. That we were providing an option for you, but we committed to you for the whole year. So you had a choice with your son. Let him go play for Granite State Stars, the Rhode Island Sharks, the Springfield Olympics for a year, or have him go to one of the prep schools for a year. You were safe. And I think that really helped us continue to grow in that we just provided a different opportunity, a different option for people. But I told some people, go to prep school. Like, you should go. Like, you're looking for this environment, you're looking for this, you should go. But if you're just looking for the hockey piece, I don't think you have to pay $3,500. Stay at St. Thomas Aquinas High School, very good school, and play for us, or graduate from there and then play for us and move on to college. And I really think that really helped back in the early days. And the other cool thing about it is there were 5 of us. Year 2 or 3, I think the Matt O'Neill Club came in Charlestown, so there were 6 of us. But that was it. Like, and I left in '96. So for those first 4 years, it never got bigger than 6 teams. And we competed and we yelled at each other. But I'm still friends with some of those guys, right? Gene Binder and I are like frickin' frack. Scotty Hallow and I, love each other. Like, we have a blast. But it was small. It was contained. It was a group of friends trying to do something the right way for the right reasons. But I think it was the model that we took that allowed us to grow.
That's a great story. I mean, there's so much valuable information and lessons you can learn from that story. And what I love about that too is, like you said, you build these relationships, right? And maybe somewhat indirectly, you and I have developed a relationship through some of those connections you had early on with Merrill and Will Fay, and that had to have you approach those relationship building. That relationship building skills that you had to translate well to getting opportunities in the East Coast League, getting pro opportunities like you had for 15, 20 years after that. What do you say to that? For like, there's a lot of kids who listen to this podcast who are like, well, I want to stay in hockey, but I'm not a good enough player. What do I do?
Well, I was a kid who grew up on Cape Cod, 3,000 people. I just came back having a dinner with my brother. We were talking about my mother who passed away this past fall, and we moved there, and there was no hockey. So her and a few other people got together and they started Sandwich Youth Hockey because she had a 4-year-old, 5-year-old that wanted to play, and she was a single mother, and wonderful. I went to play junior hockey. I played at Union. I played for a year in the East Coast League in Johnstown. And like, that was it. I had a tryout in New York with the Rangers. That was it. Right. Like, I've been to Moscow. I've lived in Prague for a year when I was with the Sabres. I've been to Russia, I think 3 times now. I've been to Moose Jaw. I've been all over the world because of the game of hockey. And
spectacular.
I don't think a lot of people realize so many opportunities are out there. And there's even more today with travel being so easy and everything, that if you work hard, you're honest. And, I went to Worcester and put the pro team in there, the Railers. I was there for 5 months before I got hired by the Panthers. And they did a feature about me in Worcester magazine. It was kind of humbling. But the front page says, Toby O'Brien, hockey lifer, right? And I wear that as a badge of honor, I don't think you need to play in the NHL. I don't think you needed to play at BU or BC or any of those things. I think you need a love of the game, a passion for the game, treat people the right way, treat the people below you and the kids and the players and everything. And remember, it's always a player's game. It's not a coach's game. It's not a manager's game. It's not a parent's game. It's a player's game. So try and treat them the right way. And I think if you do that, good things happen. And then you got to work hard.
Yeah.
Like you got to work your ass off, And I remember talking to college classes, when I was working in Johnstown, I'd go over and do a sports management class at St. Francis University. And first thing I'd do is I'd walk in, I said, why are you in this class? Why are you a sports manager? I don't want to work a real job. I don't want a 9 to 5. I don't want to, I said, why don't you want to work a real job? I don't know. I need some freedom. I said, freedom like in working 29 straight days in the month of January, right? Like, is that what you want? Because you're not going to get a day off because you got this and you got this and we got games and then this happened and then, right? Like, I don't think everybody realizes how hard it is to truly work in sports and do it the right way.
Totally.
But I think if you're a good person and you work well with anything in life, you don't need to play in the NHL to work in the NHL.
It reminds me of a funny story. So this fall, Toby, I'm sure you've had a similar experience in your life. This fall, my wife and I are looking at this calendar. We deal off these like large calendars, old school, you put on the table. and we can flip through it and write down what days were available for rides to my daughter's dance or my son's hockey or soccer or basketball. And then we looked at it. I said, well, this was like August, right? Getting ready for the season. I said, well, my first day off here is Thanksgiving.
Right?
That's it. Right?
Oh,
That's what you have to do, right?
Yeah. Yep. And if you want to do something with anything, I guess, in life, but in this is the space I've grown in, all in, like, just work hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And do it.
Now,
Do it for the right reason.
That's very important too. Now, you got to have a great scouting story. A guy you uncovered, found somewhere. Tell me about the scouting.
Well, I hope. Yeah, I don't know when this is gonna broadcast, but I got a really, really good one last night because, I found out that Parker Ford was going to make his debut in Boston tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. And Parker Ford, this isn't a scouting story, but this is just a stick-to-itiveness story, was an undersized kid from Rhode Island down here. And everybody told him no, and he's too small and he's too slow. And he went to, he was a good player around here, but no. And he just kept doing it. And then he went to South Kent School, and they said, oh, you're too small and you're too slow. And as a sophomore, he didn't make the top teams. He made the second teams, and they just said, you're too small and too slow. And he just kept doing it. And as a junior, he was a little bit better. And they said, okay, where you come from? And you can play on the top team. And he had a pretty good year. And he went to Sioux City, Iowa, and they said, wow, you're too small and too slow, but boy, you work hard. We might keep you around here. So he did. And he didn't play a whole lot that year. He some and all, and he just kept working hard. And the next year he played a lot, and he got a scholarship to Providence College, and I was pushing them, and we ran all our programs there at Schneider back then, and they kept saying, what does he do? What does he do that's special? What does he do that's special? And I said, what does he not do? Like, he just does everything right, and he just keeps doing it. So they gave him a half scholarship, and I told Parker, are you crazy? Like, are you crazy? And then he got to Sioux City the second year, and he sitting around the room, and this guy's got 3 for 4, and this guy's got 4 for 4. And he texts me, and so he gets back, and he makes the USA select team for the World Junior Challenge. And I said, have you called Providence and tell them they need to pay you a little bit more here? I always wanted to go there. So he goes there. He has a great freshman year. I said, have you walked in and said, if you want me as a junior and senior, you better pay for this? He started laughing. He said, they told me they'd take care of me. One thing leads to another. But everybody still said, I don't know. And by the time you get to be a junior and senior, I had left the National Hockey League. But guys would call me, what do you think of Parker Ford? Please sign him. Like, he's going to play in the NHL. One thing led to another. I give Mark White credit. He stayed on him, and Mark stayed on him. And he only had one offer his senior year, and it was Winnipeg. And I sent Kevin Cheveldayoff a text today. I said, Chevy, I know it's pro hockey and they're all men and all, but you made a good signing, and a guy who deserves to play in the National Hockey League is going to play in the National Hockey League tonight because you guys gave him a chance. And Parker Ford's family, unassuming, no self-serving interest, just they didn't even really get it. They just let him play because he loved it. Parker just kept working. Captain at Providence College, told everybody, this kid's going to play in the NHL someday.
That's phenomenal.
He's playing in the NHL right now.
That's incredible.
Against his hometown Boston Bruins. But just like little small stories. I remember getting to a game at Songus Arena in Lowell. I had done a couple of prep school games that day, and I had actually taken my wife with me for the ride. And she loves hockey. She was a sports reporter when we met and all. And I promised, hey, we're going to go do a prep game, and then we'll go out to dinner. And then we're going to go to
You did the dance. No problem.
Lowell game. Well, in between the two plans, there was another game. And I said, maybe we can get to that game too. So instead of going to dinner, we did 2 prep school games. And by the time we got to Lowell, it was a little late. in the first period had already started. So we walk up the stairs and we walk into the back end of the building, and looking down, and this undersized defenseman gets the puck and he curls behind his net, and he moves his shoulders one way and he moves his shoulders the other way, and his legs take off, and he comes up through the defensive zone. He enters the neutral zone. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And he enters the offensive zone. He opens hips and he scans everything. And I'm like, hey, I got to go. I got to get a roster. I got to find out who that is. I run down to the press box. I grab a roster. I look down. It's Chad Ruedel. I end up inviting Chad to development camp in Buffalo, because I did a lot of college free agents back then. And he came as a freshman. His sophomore year, he went to somebody else. His junior year, he went to somebody else. So that year, his freshman summer, sophomore summer. So he becomes a junior. So he went somewhere else his sophomore summer. His junior year, they win. They go down and they win in Pittsburgh. So we've always been a front door guy. I've never gone behind anyone, especially with underclassmen. But I am leaving and I'm driving to the airport, and his agent calls, at that time his advisor, because you couldn't have agents back then if you were still in school. And they had met with the family, had breakfast, and said, hey, Toby, do you guys want Ruedel? And I said, hold on, George Bezos. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, get back here. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I had breakfast with the family and he wants to sign. So I'm like, I'm calling Buffalo and all this. And needless to say, we got him. But his coach was so angry that he wouldn't let him get on the plane and fly to Buffalo. And Tyler Myers had got hurt that night, so they were going to play him that night. I get Darcy Regier calling me, yelling at me, where is he? Why isn't he here? Because his coach wouldn't let him leave because he was so mad that he was leaving school early. He made him fly back to Boston. Oh, what a disaster. Needless to say, Chad Ruedel has a Stanley Cup ring because, he's been a 6, 7, 8 guy in the National Hockey League, and he won a cup with Pittsburgh. And I guess the other real good story was I was living in the Czech Republic, kind of like overseeing our European group and trying to put that together in Buffalo. And I went to see an 18-year-old playing in the Czech Extra League in Pardubice. And I was watching one 18-year-old. He took one shift in the first period, and then he was the bench divider the rest of the game. So I was going to get up and leave. And I kept seeing this guy, number 92. I'm like, who the hell is this guy, 92? And I didn't bring my computer or anything because I was watching one player for the draft back then. I'm like, Jesus, and I'm going, and I'm starting to get okay in the Czech Republic, and I beat feet, and I get up to the press box, and I get the rosters. I'm looking down, 92. I see this name, Thomas Nosek, right? And I'm like, who is this guy? And I look down, and he was 21 years old now. And I'm like, he's the best player on the ice. Like, this kid can play in the National Hockey League. Okay, great. So I watched the rest of the game. So I changed my whole schedule, and I think my wife actually flew over at that point to visit. And I said, we're going to Kladno. And she's like, Kladno, great. Jaromir Jagr's team, right? And he might still be playing there. He was playing at least a year ago, right?
I think he started the season for sure.
Yeah, right. So you go in and you have to walk through the woods to this rink that's like partially outdoors, and then it's covered, and up at the end is all cement and everything. But Pardubice was playing at Kladno, so I wanted to see this guy play again. He was the best player on the ice again. So I track him down, I track his agents down and everything, and go back to Pardubice and watch him play a third time. And I had met him, had something to eat with him, interviewed him, met the whole works. He had, I think he had mono his draft year, bad. His 19-year-old year, his 18-year-old year, his 19-year-old year, he fractured his collarbone, missed 6 months.
Wow.
His 20-year-old year, he ends up being named captain of the World Junior team for the Czech Republic. They were playing in Calgary. And I went back and looked at old reports and all. No, I wasn't at that, but I looked at reports that we had, and he, some people liked him, but they were like, he's a 20-year-old third line guy, right? You know, but it's only because he couldn't play in the U18s because he had mono. He couldn't play in the World Juniors as a 19 because he had a fractured collarbone. So he kind of got lost in the shuffle. So we got on him really hard, and we were going to sign him. Nobody else was on him. And I love it because we've stayed in touch. And several years later, he said, "Thank you for doing one thing, making me still believe in myself." I always thought I could play in the NHL, but I was 21 now, playing in the extra league. I didn't think anyone else thought I could too. And when you met with me, so we were going to sign him. Unfortunately, Darcy Regier got fired in the meantime, and a guy by the name of Tim Murray came on board in Buffalo, and Tim just lost interest in that stuff. Like, he was doing different things.
Wow.
So Detroit ended up signing him. I think Thomas Nosek has become one of the best fourth-line centermen in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, he had watched a lot of Devils games with him last year. He was a good player for sure.
He was great for the Bruins before that, you know. But I think that was one of my most enjoyable, pure, fun, hey, you just found a guy.
Yeah,
Stories.
It's got to be a spectacular feeling.
Obviously, Linus Ullmark, you know, never played on a national team, never played in the elite league, was playing way up north. Nobody had ever seen him play. Right, our guy in Finland and in Sweden saw him play twice because he lived up there in a second level, but he kind of knew of them, and he was a goalie there for many, many years, Freddie Anderson. And so it was back before they put all the rules in with the NHL. So we were able to run a small combine on our own, and we could bring players in and put them on the ice. So Freddie called and said, "I've got a wild long shot here. Nobody knows about this guy. Would you guys bring him over and put him on the ice?" We said, "Sure." So we brought him over, and me and Bobby Janos, who was our minor league goalie coach at the time, just worked with the goalies. And after the first practice, he was on the ice for an hour and a half. Bobby says to me, "He's pretty good." I said, "No kidding, isn't he? This kid's pretty good." So he said, "What do we do?" I said, "I'm going to go ask Kevin and Darcy if we can keep him here another day." We flew him from Sweden for a 1.5 hour practice, and we were sending him home. We changed his flight, kept him a second day. He was awesome in practice a second day, and that's how Linus Ullmark, the Vezina Trophy winner, got drafted.
That's incredible. That's really incredible.
No lie. Now, I love scouting. Andrew.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool story to find those, those hidden gems. That's really cool.
Yep.
Now tell me, Toby, what do you think, of the junior landscape right now? I know that it's a quick transition from some good stories. There could be good and bad involved with this. I don't know, but I know that you and I share a lot of the same values. Yeah. So I'd love to get your opinion.
Yeah, no, like you use that segue in like 10 years in the East Coast Hockey League, when the East Coast Hockey League was a little rough and tumble and growing and long bus rides, and they were so much fun. And the guys were just so honest, and they cared, and they were playing because they loved the game, and like they committed themselves. Like, it was fun. And then make the jump to National Hockey League, and part of that was running Bridgeport and the Islanders minor league system for 4 of the 5 years I was there. So I still got to see it, but now I was seeing it at the American League level, kind of flushing down, but still watching what was going on back here in New England and in the US in general, because it was a passion. Fast forward through Buffalo, Florida, I went in and talked to the Eastern Junior League group for a while, one time about, they asked, they were getting to be an older league, a lot of 20-year-olds. And they said, "Why don't we have NHL guys coming?" And I said, "Because there's nobody here to watch," right? Like, you have one Charlie Coyle, you have one Jimmy Vesey, like, you're all 20-year-olds, go back to 18-year-olds. So I stayed tied in with the group a little bit and just really loved it. kind of retired from the National Hockey League and get back into the development and doing different things like this, trying to have cool life experiences through hockey. And, at the beginning, even 5-6 years ago, just looking pre-pandemic, there were a couple different options. And like out east here, the Eastern Junior League went one way, USPHL went another way. And the North American League kind of settled in as that number 2 group, and the USHL, like, good for them. They took off, and now obviously they're facing some challenges now. So a lot of different things happened there, and the USHL kind of became the premier, the BCHL kind of right there with it in a lot of ways. North American slotting in 3, and but I think it goes back a little bit to what I said earlier. It became a good thing, but it became, and it still can be a good thing, and it can be a thing that everyone makes some money at, and coaches get paid and managers get paid, and right. Absolutely, it's hard work, and doing it the right way, you deserve to get paid. But I just see the incredible opportunity of people to sell ice, right, in rinks that are privately owned, obviously, because most of the junior kids are out of school, and now with the growth of online education, obviously, kids can take online classes and skate, which I personally am not a believer of. I think there's something to be said for sitting in a classroom and having to talk to that guy next to you, and at some point those relationships are going to be as important as or more than anything you're going to do on the ice, although locker room relationships lead to a lot of great things as well. But I think the opportunity for people to capitalize on its sports driven, achievement driven society, because it's not just in hockey, it's in soccer and lacrosse and basketball and baseball, and I'm sure it's in science and music and everything else, right? And it's this need that my kid needs to be, and I think it drove this athletic opportunity for people who wanted to be in the game to explode. And it went through this incredible rapid growth that I don't think anybody really knew what was going. It was a popcorn machine, and where are they all going to go? And now it's all up there. And where is it all going to land? And I just think there's a lot of great opportunities out there for kids. I get involved with it because James Mello came to me and said, "Hey, Tobe, would you get back involved?" And I said, "Oh God." I was on that side of my career. I said, yes. Now I'm on this side of my career. But I said, I will. And I'll be honest with you, Andrew. I said I will because I looked around the landscape and I said, there's some good operators and there's some good programs, but there's a lot of really less than good programs and operators. And in all the leagues, leagues. But I think if you see a roster that has 70 plus kids on it in a year, you really have to question what's going on and why are they doing what they're doing, right? I really worry about that, again, in any league. So we just get back involved because I wanted to do it right for the right reasons, the right way. And, the model that we're running down here with our junior program is like, I'm doing it for fun, really, like truly, like I'm doing it for fun, but I'm doing it to try and help kids. But we're using the model that we used back in the Eastern Junior Hockey League. We take 25 kids, we charge them X, we provide everything, and you're with us from September until April. End of story. And I told James that's the only way we do it. So I hope that everybody can kind of see that the number one thing that's most important, it goes back to, I guess, what we said when we were talking, is the most important thing in all of this athletic sports is the players.
Yes.
Because you only get to be a player one time. So we all owe it. USHL, North American League, NCDC, EHL, USPHL, Alberta Junior League, you name it, right? We all owe it to the players to be honest and true to them, and then let them take this journey and end up somewhere. So, like, I'm not against a lot of teams and a lot of options. I'm against a lot of teams that are doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Right. And again, making some money is not the wrong reason. Right. Making some money or making a lot of money and not treating the players the right way. When we were in the National Hockey League, we still treated the players were the show. They weren't paying to see me. I could have drafted the best player ever. They weren't coming to see me. They were coming to see that player. And I think we forget about that sometimes. And I think everybody's got to get back to that, and then let everybody just be and operate. And the good programs and the good people will continue to succeed, and they will help kids. And at the end of the day, that's what our job is.
I do think I agree with you. I mean, that is a profound statement, what you're saying. And I agree with you. And, I think these new rule changes and some of the changes in the landscape will shake out positively for the operators who do it right, and most likely negatively for the operators who have cut corners and done things that aren't player centric. And that's a positive.
I agree with you there. And I think everyone right now is trying to figure out what's going to happen. The USHL is trying to figure out what's going to happen. The BCHL is trying to figure out what's happening because they lost 40 some odd kids, right? The CHL is trying to figure out what's going to happen. Do we need to invest more into the US? The National Team Development Program is trying to figure out what's going to happen. The North American League is trying to figure out what's going to happen, right? The Eastern Hockey League is trying to figure out what's going to happen. The USPHL NCDC is trying to figure out what's going to happen. Like a lot of these leagues, like what's going to happen next? And I was with one college coach today, actually, very good Division III program, top 10 Division III program, says, I look at all the leagues because you know what? There's some good players in every league. Now, in this league, there might be a few more better players, but in this league, there are some, and either I'm going to find them or somebody else is going to find them. And it's no different than finding Thomas Nosek playing in Pardubice, Czech Republic. There are good players everywhere. So just let the players decide, let the parents decide, and I'll say that was a year ago. The USHL, if you're going to go play, God bless you, go, right? You're going to BCHL, you want a different experience, God bless you, go. But then you get into this other stuff. If you want to play Major Junior, go play Major Junior. You don't have to go to college. Like there's a lot of kids who have done incredibly well, or they've ended up playing at UNB or University of Alberta or something like that. And then going on to play pro hockey or becoming doctors. There's no right path for anybody. I just wish we would all stop trying to tell everybody, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. You don't have to do all those things. Pick the path that works for you and let everybody just run their own businesses, their own operations, and the good programs will continue to get better.
That is a spectacular way to end the episode. Toby, thank you so much for jumping on. A true hockey lifer with a ton of insight. And I know our listeners really appreciate all this information. So thanks again for coming on, Toby.
Always. And for everybody who's listening, you're listening for a reason, right? Like whoever's out there listening, mom, dad, or whatever, I bring back the Parker Ford story. Don't do it for a self-serving interest. Don't do it for an entitlement. Listen, and you help make it better. The pendulum's way over on one side right now in this space. Let's all try and bring it back to center. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Toby. Have a great night.
Bye.